My Inner Knowing, empowering you to find your compass for the journey. We are dedicated to supporting you to rediscover and trust your natural ability to navigate life each day by sharing insight and experience through the lens of two professional communicators and their guests. We intend to prompt internal inquiry that supports all those willing to explore a unique path.
Yeah. Well, hello.
Hello.
Good morning, Joe. How are you?
I am fine. Thanks for having me.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for spending this time with us this morning.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, where do you want to start?
Well, we wanted to give a little bit of background on you, Joe, and I guess starting with you have an institution called the Institute for Conscious Being, and I was hoping you could tell us a little bit about what you're doing in your life right now.
All right. The Institute for Conscious Being just had its 10th anniversary.
Wow.
And it is a school founded by my wife, Lark, and me. And it's a school that teaches people through spiritual practices the methods of raising their own consciousness. And we do this through several methods, but the major teaching method we use is the spirituality of the Enneagram.
Yes.
When I say spirituality of the Enneagram, that means I'm not talking about the Enneagram of personality per se. It would be another Enneagram that is getting hardly any attention because people are so fascinated with personality. But the other Enneagram that I call the real Enneagram is the Enneagram of Soul. And so through teaching the Enneagram of personality and of soul, we help us come to our true selves, our more authentic being, which we have found is the soul instead of the outer layer of our shell, which is our personality. And, that personality is sometimes a false self. It's not the authentic self. Right. And we have people from all over the country come to Birmingham, Alabama, where we conduct our intensives 3 times a year. And when someone is admitted to the school, they are privileged to do the online teachings that we have in between each intensive in-person meeting. Okay. And if people can't come to the in-person meeting, they will be able to have the recordings of those. So it's a school that is, I don't know any other like it. I know some schools that teach spiritual practices, and I know many that teach the Enneagram, but this is really a unique combination of the two. And everyone who comes and studies with us seems to get a lot out of it and understand about transformation. So
yeah, what inspired you and Lark to start your institute?
Well, sadly, it was a tragedy. We have been teaching spirituality and the Enneagram since the early 90s. But we have not done it in our own school. We have been invited to different venues to present as a speaker, and those events are usually a retreat because what we have to say is experiential. It's not just head stuff. You have to experience it. So it's usually a Friday night and Saturday at a minimum. And we were invited all over we're located in the Southeast, and was most of our speaking engagements, except for a few in New England. But we were teaching the Enneagram because I had been exposed to it in the late 80s and was taught the Enneagram by the Jesuits in Cleveland, Ohio. And the gentleman who wrote the first book on the Enneagram was my teacher, and he is Patrick O'Leary, who is one of the founders of the International Enneagram Association. And knowing the Enneagram for a long time was a wonderful way to understand ourselves and then teach others how to understand themselves. And our son became ill when he was in college, his first year of college. Ben was a very wonderful, smart, talented young man, our son, and he was, I guess I would use the word stricken by addiction. It really took hold, and we had to live in uncertainty all the time. We had to live in fear. We had to live in knowing that the person who was coming home from college or wherever would be someone we really didn't know, and who didn't treat us as he always had. He was altered because of alcohol and possibly other drugs that were going on, and it became a train wreck. And the upshot of it all is that we had rehabs after rehabs, and the sicker Ben got, his pancreas began to fail, and even after a couple of operations to remove cysts from that organ, he lost the battle and died in a diabetic coma. He was 26. Wow. So those were a lot of years that we were in agony, and that our family was in agony. And we searched for ways to deal with our grief, because this was no matter how much you fear the worst, you don't understand it until it does happen. The enormity and the life-changing effect that it has on someone's life, our life, my life, and nothing seemed to work. It seemed like even sometimes our prayers would bounce back from the ceiling. It was true despair. True despair. And we were asked to go to, I'm going to tell this story because I feel led to tell it. I usually don't, but the May after our son died in September, we were invited to Arizona just by friends who had moved there from the Southeast. And they are very close, dear, wonderful friends, Charlotte and Buddy Mullis. They live in Tucson, Arizona. They invited us out, and this was 16, 17 years ago now.
Mm.
And we had never been to the West, really. We'd been to California a couple of times, but we had never seen deserts and any of that. And it's so different from anything we have, with all of the lush green and all of this. And we were amazed. It was like, we were riding out through the country and the desert, and it was I was amazed by these cactus trees, the saguaro cactus trees that are huge.
Yes.
And I found out that they have to be 75 years old before they even get their first arm.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And then we saw all of these, and they would even go up mountains, and you could see in between them, because here trees that go up mountains have a canopy and you can't see the mountain, but you can see the cacti and the mountain at the same time. Just different visual things that we had never experienced. And I said to Buddy, as in the middle of nowhere, 20 miles from the nearest gas station, I said, please stop. I've got to get out. I've got to be among these trees, and I've got to these cactuses, and I've got to feel them and touch them and understand this. It looks like Jurassic Park. And so he did. He just pulled right over. There was absolutely hardly any traffic, and he pulled over. It was just on the side of the road, not at a tourist stop or any wide spot in the road. We four got out, and I picked a cactus, and I asked my wife Lark to take a picture of me with my arms around the cactus. You can't hug a cactus,
right?
because of the spines.
Yeah.
And so I approximated a hug, and as I was looking up and down this massive tree, I made the remark to her. I said, honey, these spines look like toothpicks. Millions of toothpicks going up and down in rows, coming out from little pods, and it was unbelievable. And I reached, I said, these they look like toothpicks, and I reached up to pull one out, and it came right out, and in my fingers, between my thumb and forefinger, was a manufactured wooden toothpick. My first thought is, well, this is where we get toothpicks. and then I came to myself, and I put it next to the other. I pulled a toothpick out of a cactus, and you can't pull those spines. I learned you can't pull them out.
Wow.
And it seems like an inconsequential and a detailed event, but that one event was very impactful to us, because if your prayers sometimes are bouncing off the ceiling, and maybe you don't know if the divine is listening or cares, or that you matter, and something like this happens to you, it hit us later that the divine God, or whatever you want to use as the word for the divine intelligence that runs this universe, was saying, I know right where you are. I have pinpointed you with laser accuracy, because you found, against all odds,
Yeah.
something that shouldn't have been there, that was placed there, who knows when, how long ago, by who.
Right.
But
Right.
whoever placed it there probably said, well, nobody will ever find this douchebag. And that was a pivotal time. It was sort of like, well, we really are heard, and we really are understood and cared for. And it gave me pause to go deeper into my studies of the Enneagram. And that's when I was able to see an Enneagram that is not the Enneagram of personality. It's the Enneagram of soul.
Yeah.
And I saw the components of the Enneagram of soul. And that is what helped us go deeper into what this life is all about, what our purpose is all about, and the huge factor of that our ego writes a story for our lives.
Yeah.
And that is the ego's concept of what it wants to happen to us. And that ego's story may come true in part, but that ego's story will not always come true. And what do we do when it does not come true?
Yeah.
How do we live? How do we manage when one relationship that you nurtured and your life was about promoting and loving and caring and watching them grow? What do you do when it all goes and you think, well, what has my life been about?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it gives you pause to understand, or it gave me pause to understand that I can live out of my ego in tragedy, or I can live out of my soul with comfort in knowing that it's not up to me to plan this entire thing.
Yeah.
This whole thing has larger patterns that as a human I cannot comprehend.
Yeah.
And the soul has the qualities for us to move through the world in joy and having sanity. Whereas if we had stayed in our ego tragedy, we would not have had joy or sanity. We would have had despair and possibly even have become bitter.
Yeah. Sure.
But we are not.
Yeah.
We are living productively. And after we found out that about the Enneagram's ability to minister to the deeper, I say the truths of the Enneagram minister to us, many more worlds of thought were opened to us. And that's what made me want to write this book I wrote then, which is called Becoming Conscious. And it's the use of the Enneagram in becoming conscious. And it is, people liked it and they wanted to know more. And they said, where can we learn this? And I said, well, it's in the book. And they said, well, no, we want to explore it. And that's how the Institute came about. People saying, we've got to understand this. We've got to immerse ourselves in it. And the Institute is, excuse me, it's very viable, very very exciting, and the most beautiful thing about it is that we see people going out of ego, living from their soul.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a tremendous satisfaction.
Yeah.
And and Lark and I have children who we're teaching this to.
Yeah.
And it for us, it's a beautifully redemptive thing that this school has come about. I don't know if I answered your question, or I could.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So it's a long story, but I think that's what you might have been going after.
Yeah.
It is, Joe, and there's so many things to ask about this. It's just it's a beautiful sharing, number one. I just want you to know. I mean, I'm touched. So when you see people in your courses, you say you could see the transformation from ego-based living to soul. What do you see from your side?
As an observer,
Yes.
and as a spiritual teacher.
Yes.
I see people who come in to the Institute who are familiar with a body of knowledge called the Enneagram, and they are familiar with with their desire for spiritual maturity and growth. And I see them coming in some of them are leery about what it is. Some of them are convinced that this is for them and they're gonna. Some are uncomfortable because they don't know what is in store, and they are they don't want to appear like they don't know enough or whatever.
Sure.
But when they come, there's such a love there, because everybody is basically in the same boat. We all know that the power of the ego, which we need, we can't do without an ego, but the power of the ego, if it's unhealthy, and if we live with its distortions, thinking that's the way the world should be, they know now from their studies that the ego is just a mental construct. It's just a structure whereby we negotiate and strategize how to move through the world.
Yeah.
And that mental structure is not really who we are. And so when they find out who they really are, and the Enneagram isn't the only thing that shows us that. There are multiple, as you know from your own vast studies and your interviews. Yeah. But I watch people using the Enneagram to become more conscious.
Yeah.
And when they do, they are most of all conscious of their own goodness. Because you see, the ego tells us, the inner critic, so to speak, tells us that that we are not enough, we are flawed, there's a terrible defect, we'll never measure up. How can I get the love that I want? I can't. How can people really know me? I don't feel known or understood. I'm destined to be lonely. I can't find a connection. And this ego has various ways to solve its problems.
Yeah.
And there's 9 basic ways that these problems are solved in the Enneagram, and it's just incredibly true. And I'll go over them. Number 1, I'm going to solve these problems by always being right. No matter what, I'm right. And many of them are, but they can be dead right.
Yes.
And I say them, it's any of us who are in that energy on the Enneagram. And then number two's negotiate it by saying, well, I'm just helpful and giving. I'm going to get through just doing that. You better take what I give you. And the threes say, well, I'm just going to be a success and accomplish stuff and get it done, and it'll be okay, regardless of the consequences. And when I build it, do it, and make it, it's going to be so great and wow you so much that you will love me. And I can go all around the Enneagram about these styles, but when people find out what their style is, their egoic style, and they dispense with it and find out that there are a huge set of essential divine qualities that make them up on a much deeper level, they are given a comfort and a joy that shines on their faces. They're not worried about what they used to be worried about. They're not scared as they were. They aren't preoccupied with whether or not they're loved as much. They're not as angry as some of them are, not as angry or bitter or resentful. There's this shift. And they've tried to do it on their own for years, some, but they were still trapped into the egoic structure. And, Einstein is the one who said, no problem can be solved on the level of consciousness that created the problem.
Right.
So when we're in the egoic mode of life, and use the ego to strategize a way to cope with it, that doesn't work. The only thing that can work is the truth of the soul. And so I have gone in much deeper into this in these last years, and there's a book coming out. My second book is coming out in is coming out in November. I don't know when this is going to air, but it would be next month at this point. And it's called Know Your Soul, Journeying with the Enneagram. And I go into great detail, but I don't teach it from an academic standpoint. I teach it using my own life and my own revelations, and our own ecstasies and agonies to illustrate the fluidity and power of these truths, how they have come together. And it's really an amazing thing.
It sounds really powerful, Joe. Yeah, I think when we tell our story, and the learnings that we're aware of that came with it, it's such a powerful teacher for people. Yeah. When you talk about consciousness for you, Joe, oh gosh, what do you imagine consciousness to be?
I imagine it as increasing awareness of oneself and who one is, and increasing awareness of how one, from that true self, relates to others and to the world, the universe. And it's a flowering thing. I experiencing it as flowering. It never stops blooming. There's always a new thing I can see.
That's beautiful.
There's always a new thing that I see, because I'm at least aware of the ego sitting on my shoulder, whispering in my ear, You got to do this, or you should say this, or blah, blah, blah. At least I'm aware of it. I wasn't aware of it before. I just thought that was me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
it affects everything. I mean, I remember yesterday I was doing some work, and I decided to get up and go into the kitchen and get something to drink, and I was looking out the window over the sink, and there's a jogging path
Okay.
right out there, and there was a lady walking, and she had a water bottle and her hat on, and she had jogging clothes on, but she was walking, and she was walking with a limp. And the first thing my ego said was, oh, there's a lady who's disabled for some reason, temporarily or for good, I don't know. And then I looked closer and I saw a determination to her walk. She was working with that limp as if to restore her normal gait. I didn't know that, but there was a determination I saw in the lake, how she lifted her legs, and then I think my soul took over, because I still kept looking at her, and my soul said, I'm her. She and I are the same. I am limping. I am wounded for life, but I am determined. And she and I are the same. And it gave me pause to pray for us. And the ego, I don't think, would have done that.
Agreed.
It only did the first part, but the second part of the soul came into that, and it was just getting a glass of water, looking out the kitchen window. So that is a flowering of consciousness.
Yeah.
And
I love
it comes in different forms all day long.
Yeah. I love the visual of that. Yeah.
When you have those moments, does it come suddenly, or are you like in the ego and then all of a sudden you realize, or how does that happen for you when you know the soul is coming through in this moment as I watch this lady now?
Well, it's for me, I'm glad you asked that question, because I don't think I've ever been asked that before. So you're giving me pause to think. It's a happy and whole feeling. I feel full and free and happy. I'm not categorizing people. I'm not figuring out a way I can survive a certain moment. It's living in the present. And when you're able to do that, and you work on doing that, when it comes, there's such a good feeling that your brain is in relief, because it's not having to work that mental structure of the ego. You're trusting the moment. You're trusting that you're seeing everything, not with the perception out of the ego, but with the eyes of the soul, which lets us see much deeper into every situation, not only visually, but intuitively.
For yourself, Joe, and I know that your course has got to teach this, but for you, on the other side, how is it that you practice getting yourself in that space more and more often?
Well, for me, it's two major spiritual practices. They are both, and they go hand in hand. Meditation and writing.
Mhm.
I meditate, then I write. That's how all my writings come to me.
Mhm.
I do a daily reflection every day,
Mhm.
and they go out to our institute and other friends, and there's not a day that this thing doesn't well up in me, and I have to write it. And it is a spiritual practice
Mhm.
because I'm doing spiritual work writing these
Yeah. Yeah.
things. And then, of course, I write my books, which is another type of writing. And it's also very consciousness raising,
Mhm.
much introspection, much analysis of the world around me. For example, I know today I was writing, what if we did know the future? What would be the implications of that?
Mhm.
That's a huge, I
Yeah.
haven't even begun to get into that yet, but I can't wait to see what's written.
Mhm.
Right.
You know, the whole idea of something coming through you,
Sure.
Yes.
it
Yes.
makes you feel great.
Yeah.
Um, to be linked, to be so connected with something greater than I am, it's just a tremendous compliment and blessing and affirmation.
Yeah.
The meditation I do is quite different from any meditation that I have been taught until I found out about this one. And I found out about this one when I went to India, and was at an ashram there. And I've since been back to the same ashram. It's a meditation called heartfulness, not mindfulness. Heartfulness. It doesn't mean the mind isn't used, but it means that the meditation is focused on the heart area of our bodies and the light, the source of light within our heart that draws us into itself, so that our mind and body are drawn into this first organ that we were ever given as we were being made.
Yeah.
And it's another tremendous gift that has been given me. And I don't mind sharing with you and the audience that you can learn about this wonderful technique totally free of charge by going to the Heartfulness app, which is free. And they teach you all of these meditations, and they do a good job because I've been there with the people themselves, and I've seen their product online, or it's not for sale, it's just given freely.
Yeah.
And it's a very good teaching app if anyone wants to learn about heartfulness meditation. It's very, very powerful.
Wow.
Thank you for sharing.
Oh, yeah.
Just giving people tools is so important.
Yes, I agree.
You had another point, though.
I was just saying that it takes those two together for me. It isn't one or the other. It's I guess it's receiving in meditation and then giving. You know, it's that flow that it gets you in.
Yeah.
Reciprocity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how
They
some
work
people
together.
describe it.
Yeah.
So nice.
Yeah. Joe, when you think about your journey, what are some other, I don't know, resources that you feel like might be helpful for people to explore?
I think that retreat is a life changer.
I agree. Yeah.
Coming aside from the routine
Mhm.
that we get ourselves into, that one of the early fathers of the Enneagram, she's named George Ivanovich Gurdjieff, who brought the Enneagram over to the United States from the East at the beginning of the last century. He was the first person to bring it to the United States.
Yeah.
In the form of dance with the energies. How he was taught it at the monastery that he learned it. And he said, most people are sleepwalking through life.
Yeah.
And it's easy if you do, until something happens called a shock point or a tragedy or whatever.
Yeah.
And we wake up for a little bit and then we go right back to sleep.
Yeah.
So many people's days are getting up, making the coffee, putting on their clothes, getting in the car, going this way, going that way, the way they did it yesterday and the day before.
Yes.
Yeah.
It may be punctuated by, an anniversary or, or an event or whatever, but the order of the day is sameness.
Right.
And the reason that most people like that is because predictability gives us control, or it makes us think we have control, and that nothing bad is going to happen if we do the same thing every day.
Yeah.
If we work the same job, if we see just the same people, if we go to work just that same route, if we get our gas at the same gas station, if we shop at the same grocery store, if we go vacationing at the very same place and do the very same thing with the very same people.
Yeah. Yeah.
What life is there in that?
Right.
It's like somebody's caught in Groundhog Day, that movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Joe.
yeah, and so retreat gets us out of that gerbil wheel that so many of us are on, and we go someplace. And one of the best places to go, I have found, is a monastery, and they're all over.
Yes.
They're all over, and most monasteries take retreatants and even have a retreat house or a retreat portion of them. And there's one here in Alabama, Sacred Heart Monastery. They even do massage. They do individual spiritual direction. They have a labyrinth that you can walk. You can worship with the religious there at every, in the morning at matins and for vespers in the afternoon. And then some have a service in the chapel at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and all of them gather for that, and you're allowed to go too. So there is a rhythm to it, but it's not the rhythm of our normal day. It's a divine rhythm.
Yeah.
It's been going on for centuries in these orders. And we can make ourselves attuned to that if we want. And we start thinking differently when we're in a different environment.
Yes.
And if that environment is holy, if it's sacred space, we start thinking from our soul instead of our ego. We begin to realize we are good. We are good people. We are wonderful people. We each were born as a soul child who didn't come into this world with any egoic propensities at all. They were just sheer soul.
Right.
and when she or he walks through the living room and mom and dad have guests and they walk through totally naked and everybody goes, oh no.
Yeah.
They wonder, what's the fuss about? Aren't I beautiful? Aren't I beautiful?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. That's what the little soul child says. Aren't I beautiful? And then when they see the horror on everybody's faces, then they begin to wonder, oh, well, maybe I'm not so beautiful. Maybe I'm ugly. Maybe I'm ugly. Maybe I've done something terribly shameful. And when that shame comes in layer after layer after layer, we say, I won't be my soul child anymore. I am going to find a way to deal with all this. And that's when the ego really just sets in.
Right.
Usually about 5 years old, 4, some it's later, some it's late. And it isn't usually until the second half of life we realize that the ego really isn't doing its job of helping us feel the bliss that we so desire. And we yearn to return to that essence, but we don't know how.
Yes.
And that's why reconnecting with the spirit and retreat is one of those ways to do it. The labyrinth is another way. I don't know if you've
Tell
well,
us.
it's just been quite amazing for us to do the labyrinth. And we have been privileged to have gone to the cathedral at Chartres, France.
Wonderful.
Been able to walk the labyrinth there, which is an unbelievably huge labyrinth done in marble in the floor of the cathedral.
Wow.
And during the times that the cathedral was first used, that labyrinth was walked before people went up to the altar.
Oh, okay.
Because it got them into the holy rhythm and the holy space. Then they could go to the worship, the Eucharist, or whatever it may have been at the time. And I think that the world of art is another way, creative expression. I noticed that beautiful painting in back of you. It's a showstopper because it's alive. And did one of you do that?
No. But I found an artist that made that.
And in doing this, we go to that creative part of our wonderful soul child, and we express God through our fingers and through our musical instrument or through our singing bowls.
Yes.
And we're connected. We have found the connection. So though I could go on and on about spiritual practices. There are, as you know, there's a myriad of them.
Agreed. Joe, one of the things when you were talking about retreat, I would say for me, that was probably foundationally my first experience. I went to the White House in St. Louis. I think I was 29, and that was the first time I'd been on a retreat for myself, other than someone saying, here, go to this leadership retreat or something. This was my first time away. And over the years, I so value retreat, exactly what you were sharing. And then in my work, studying even the physiological part of stepping out. This is my words, but our body's designed to keep us alive and do it as efficiently as possible. It's not caring so much about how was Joe's day, right? Joe's alive, right? And so for me, I think it's very difficult physiologically, or to change our brain if we are always in the same experience. And so I tell people, even physiologically, not just mentally and emotionally, but physiologically, our body needs different so that it can literally be different. And yeah, love
And
retreat.
and even make different neural pathways.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Oh,
I've got an interesting question for you too. If
Yeah.
I'm breaking your flow, just
no. Go ahead. Go ahead. I'm good. I'm good.
um, we have these times where we're closer to living in the soul space than we are the ego space, and then we fall back, and there's this back and forth. I would assume for everybody, even if you're further along the spectrum, but um, and this is one of those big questions that you've probably thought through, but why do you think that our soul goes to sleep?
I I think, Walker, that the soul is not asleep. It's still alive, but our ego is in charge, and our ego is anesthetized
Mhm.
to doing the routine, to thinking the same strategies, to relying on itself. The soul is to put it in an example. It when developmentally, when we were a child, we had to put that little spontaneous, beautiful being under a crust
Mhm.
because it was going to get clobbered.
Right. Right.
It was told it was not okay.
Mhm.
And it just happens to everyone because if it didn't happen, because children are so just who they are, just so spontaneous, whatever, it would be there would be no organization.
Mhm.
Okay, everything would just be what a child does when a child wants, and there would be no organization. So the world imposes a structure
Mhm.
on behavior, individual behavior, family behavior, and cultural behavior. And we have to live in that structure. Therefore, we allow our soul, and our soul allows us to put it under a crust to survive.
To survive. Yeah.
Now, it does emerge. Come on, it emerges a lot.
Yes.
It emerges when we're children and teenagers and young adults. It most emerges when there are times of great happiness, and like a birth or a marriage, or the soul just completely takes over because it's reminded of what life is about.
Mhm.
And it takes over during death. Many times it resurfaces because it knows more than the ego knows about death.
Yeah.
The ego can only see death as a problem,
Yeah.
but the soul understands the motif, the spiritual motif of
Mhm.
birth, death, and resurrection.
Mhm.
And the soul comes to the fore to say, this is this is this is not what you think. Um, this is not the end of everything. There is more, and there is deeper, and so have joy. But then the soul has to go back under the crust, because remember, the ego was hired to be the CEO of our lives.
Right.
And then when we reach the point of a critical mass of suffering, and like I say, it usually happens around midlife, 40. For a lot of people, it happens much sooner, and some later. But you reach the point that of a critical mass of suffering, that you say, I don't know why I'm suffering so, but I'm going to find out why, and I'm going to do something to relieve it. And that's when many people go on a strong, well, a determined spiritual search.
Yeah.
They search for a way to get out of this terrible pain, because they know a lot of it is self-inflicted. Everybody goes around saying that saying, what is it? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different outcome. Well, that's a popular saying. A lot of people say it, but it's true.
And yet we do the same thing over and over and over.
That's the ego style. So when people do a search for their true selves, their authentic selves, and want to dispense with the sameness and the pain of the ego, they learn different aspects of themselves. And like I say, that they are somebody else that's much more powerful, much more beautiful than their ego ever could imagine they're becoming under its own stain. And I think that that's an absolutely beautiful thing, because then the soul can be brought out unashamedly. And it amalgamates. It's in our work we call it alchemy, spiritual alchemy, a term made popular by Carl Jung, psychologist in the last century. And the ego and the soul then amalgamate and become partners. But the CEO is the soul, and the ego is in service of the soul.
That's nice. Yeah.
Yeah, I see, there's a balance in that. And I appreciate the teaching, Joe. Yeah. Thank you.
Oh, well, Joe, the hour goes so quickly.
It does. I can talk to you the rest of the day. It can maybe more. So nice.
Yeah, it is so nice. So, Joe, to finish up today, if you were going to offer to the people listening an intention, or a mantra for them to consider, what might that be?
We have a prayer at the Institute that we say all the time.
Yeah.
And I would be glad. It was written by George Appleton.
Okay.
I think it was an archbishop in England. And it's called the Gathering Prayer. I would like to repeat it.
I would love that, please. Yeah.
Give me a candle of the Spirit, O God. as I go down into the deep of my own being. Show me the hidden things. Take me down to the spring of my life and tell me my nature and my name.
Mm.
Give me freedom to grow so that I may become my true self, the fulfillment of the seed which you planted in me at my making.
Mm.
Out of the deep I cry unto thee, O God.
Mm.
Amen.
Mm. I love that. Mm. Thank you, Joe.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Theresa and Walker, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. We are excited to explore life with you. We encourage curiosity, self-growth, and we strive to be more compassionate every day.